Vechain has some pretty serious potential to do some serious and crazy gains in the next bullish cycle whenever that does start to rear its head. In this video, I'm going to be going through what the charts are looking like at the macro level and give my thoughts and opinions on how high I think Vechain could push in the next bullish market. As I get into this video, if you find it useful and informative, smash the like button, do appreciate that. If you're new to the channel, why not consider subscribing, tapping the bell, selecting all the notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with all the videos that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. If you haven't yet joined us in Discord, guys, you're missing a trick. Check it out, linked in the description down below. It is a fantastic community talking crypto 24/7. It's completely free, and I don't think you'll be disappointed by what you find down there. It is the first place that we go to notify you of everything that's going on in the crypto space. So keep a finger on the pulse of crypto by joining us down in Discord. Okay, let's jump right down into this, right? So we're going to be taking a look at three different charts. So we've got this one here, which is Smart Money Concepts. It gives us a bit of an outlook as to kind of where things currently sit. And we've got Elliott Wave Theory. It also gives us a bit of an outlook as to kind of where things are currently structured out from an EWT point of view. And then, of course, we've got our macro levels, where I do want to just focus in on some key levels, okay? Just numbers that I think are important to Vechain's price, and we might see reactions from retail investors and institutions that might want to scoop some up at some discounted rates. So let's start things off by talking about Elliott Wave Theory, right? So Elliott Wave Theory has tracked us down nicely into one of our first accumulation zones. We knew that a bear market rally was coming. This was pretty obvious when we were nearing an end of a structure, specifically after we saw FTX and all that kind of stuff unfold, of which if you were in the Discord server, you could have got ahead of that curve. Now, we can see that this accumulation zone was between 1.299 and 1.875. We got down to about mid-level in here. I think we got to a low of about 1.5 something, 1.580, something to that effect. So you can see that we got right into the zone and we reversed out of it, right? Now, the interesting thing with the structure that we have here is a WXY, right, coming down, but it's come down deeper than you would normally expect a Y wave to go. Therefore, our consideration is that it's an X wave up and a Z wave to come down even deeper. Okay, so we have to understand that from a structured point of view, there's a specific set of rules that you have to apply when it comes to corrective-based structures and the internal counts within those corrective structures. And then, of course, we have to consider the invalidation levels, the levels where price would go to, and we can basically say, okay, it was an anomaly, it just pushed a little bit further than expected to the downside, but the bottom is in and it's done, right? And these are the things that we have to kind of look for. We look for these tells and we kind of say, okay, well, have we hit those invalidations, as in the structure's broken and we can now talk about, you know, the bottom being in, or are we actually going to have to come down into these fresh lows and finish off the structure? So for me right now, it kind of sits right in that kind of latter. I think we have to come down and finish the structure. Now, all cards on the table, if I draw a line here, we can see at 5.2 cent, I would be happy to kind of say we've reversed. Okay, so once we hit a high, all cards are off the table, bottom's in. What we will say, though, is that if we do rally up there, hit 5.2, it does not prevent us going down into, you know, a corrective structure. It just means that essentially we're probably not going to go down to the 5.42. 1.542, if I can get my words out. You can see it in there. Let me actually see if that is the bottom. It's not. The bottom is actually this one right here at 1.533. Okay, so eventually it's basically saying that that would be the low and we would come back down. So hypothetically, if we were to think about hitting that 5.2 cent, we do that, right? We just cross that line. We can say, great, we're not in a WXYXZ, and instead we'll just be thinking, let's go for a correction, come down to where we are, approximately where we are right now. But we have the ability to know that we've got confirmation that things are reversed or have reversed, right? And so sometimes it's not best to jump the gun, FOMO in. Actually, it's best to kind of sit back, wait for confirmation of things, and then make your trades accordingly. Okay, so for me, that's kind of where we sit right now. Now, that hasn't happened. We have not crossed higher than 5.2, which means we have to abide by the rules and basically tells us that we have to go down a little bit deeper, at least according to Elliott Wave Theory. And for now, that's actually down here. But what we'll do is we'll do some sense checks, because essentially if I grab hold of this low with our Fibonacci retracement tool, and I move this over here. For those who do not know, there's a Fibonacci relationship between the wave structures and the Fib numbers, okay, and the levels that you have retracement for very specific types of structures within Elliott Wave Theory. It can be a little bit complicated, which is why a lot of people get it wrong, but you can see right down here you have the range where this would go, and it is quite broad. Basically, the Z wave is the W wave at the very beginning. Okay, you take the measurement of the W wave, you put this at the top of your X wave here, and your Z wave will finish somewhere between, and it's very broad, as you can see, 0.618 all the way through to 1.236. It's a very broad range, and it's because the structure of a Z wave, or the internal workings of that Z wave, can be so many different things, right? So you have to pay attention to the internal workings of that structure of the Z wave so that you can actually get a good bearing as to where things are likely to go. So you can't just say it's going to be somewhere in here and be done with it. You're going to have to really kind of make sure you're aware of the entire workings of what's going on inside the Z wave so you can be more predictive over where the reversal is likely to be. Alternatively, you can say at 1.151, I'm just going to DCA, right? Because at that point there, that's your minimum kind of threshold. That's kind of where you're going to be entering into this. You might come down a little bit deeper, but you're like, yeah, it's the final wave. It doesn't matter. It's a really good price, right? 1.151 is a fantastic price for Vechain, in my opinion. It could go down, all the way to 0.00407 though. And of course, there's a fantastic opportunity if it did. I don't think it's going to go that low myself, but it's there. It's on the map. We kind of know where it sits. Now, this whole video is all about the fantastic, crazy gains that you can get with Vechain, right? And that really comes from getting in at the right moment, right? It's not FOMOing in when the candles are all green and prices pumping up. It's about making sure that you have a strategy for where you want to dollar cost average and kind of accumulate good value, okay? And basically then in the bull market, you'll see value add, right? You'll see a lot of FOMO action from retail investors who missed the bottom and all that kind of stuff. And you'll also see a lot of crazy stuff going on in the crypto space as people just throw money at anything, right? And essentially when it comes to Vechain, from a fundamental standpoint, I think it has a lot going on. And I think it's going to get more and more apparent that actually Vechain is not just about, about supply chain. It's a smart contract platform written in Solidity with fantastic tooling to be able to onboard new businesses around the world, right? It's not China-based coin, as it's kind of got that really bad reputation for some unknown reason. They're actually a European-based company, and they're really heavily integrated in the business sector, right, with some fantastic partnerships and partners overall. And I think a lot of this stuff is going to start to materialize. People are going to start actually realizing what Vechain is. And I think that the futures are incredibly bright. I think there's a lot of stuff that's going to be built on Vechain. Everything from DeFi with VUSD and everything else, and all the other use cases that come from a smart contract platform. NFT platforms blowing up, the metaverse platforms on Vechain are blowing up. And of course, they do have counterfeiting protections with authentication and all that kind of supply chain stuff as well. There's a lot of stuff that goes on Vechain, and a lot of stuff that people just simply don't know about either. So from a fundamental standpoint, I think there's going to be a lot of FOMO action as things start to heat up on Vechain. So when we take a look at this from an Elliott Wave theory point of view, we think, okay, there's a fantastic dollar cost averaging opportunities around the 1.151. Okay, I won't think we'll go and come down into these lower ranges, but we'll have to see how that structure forms out. Okay, so that's Elliott Wave theory. It gives us a bit of an idea that the market is structured to go down on Vechain. Okay, now it's great. We've pushed up to 3.258 approximately, I think. Let me just check it. 3.255, so a little bit on the lower side there, but yeah, you can kind of see we pushed up quite well and we're coming down. Okay, and that's good. It's good to see this kind of natural kind of corrective action push price back into the good zones where we can continue to build. I've got a good position, but I want to build a better position myself, and I'll continue to dollar cost average all around these low prices, because when things get going, they really do get going. We can see that the all-time high is sat up here, and I think we're going to breach that. Okay, so this is 27.98 cent. So we can see some fantastic gains when we were first dollar cost averaging back in 2020. You can see the kind of prices that were paying 0.5 cent on this stuff, and it really did ramp up nicely. Now, Elliott Wave theory, if we were to zoom out of this, we could argue that this is a giant three-wave corrective structure taking us up higher. Okay, multi-year hold for us, and it's going to be paying significant dividends, in my opinion. Obviously, there's a lot of short-term kind of views on the market, and people kind of really kind of getting a little bit too carried away with themselves and all that kind of stuff. But I can see that Vechain, from an Elliott Wave theory point of view, has some serious potential to it. We can see right up here that on a one-to-one basis, if we were to go down to 1.1 cent, we would have the ability to kind of look at this as a $2 potential in the upside. Now, I think that's a bit high myself, and I think it's better to be kind of thinking about where our other fib levels are and where we're going to find some resistances, right? I have good keen eyes around the 60-cent range and around the 80-cent range. Plus, as we kind of move closer and closer to the dollar, that's going to be a theoretical kind of blocker. But I do think there's going to be some potential moves here that sees Vechain just absolutely soar. And if there is a lot of DeFi kind of, getting built on Vechain, in the future, I can see that a lot of total value locked occurring and all that kind of stuff that's going to really help push the supply or kind of shrink the supply of VET, which will then increase as demand or increase the price as demand kicks in. So I think that the future is very, very bright. I don't think $2 is going to be something that we can see until we get the structure occurring here, and we can be a little bit more accurate about it. But it's good to see that something like that is potentially on the cards within an Elliott wave theory structure. Let's move over though, right? So smart money concepts helps us understand more about the here and the now. It doesn't really give us that kind of future price prediction that kind of Elliott wave theory can do. But what you can get from here is the ability of the current structure, right? So as we were saying, it looks like cheaper prices are coming, and that seems very evident even from a smart money concepts point of view, right? So we can see that we had our bearish change of character. This occurred way back in December of 2021. We can then see that we had a break of structure, or a CTS, a continuation of the trend to the downside, essentially here. Okay, this was confirmed back in May of 2022. We then got a third one over this side. This is November 2022, and so we can see that we're in a bearish state, right? This is a bearish model. It hasn't changed, right? And we can see that there's no change of characteristic to the upside since we've had this move, this pump in the market to the upside, right? So we can see that no change of characteristic has occurred for Vechain. So we are still bearish, right? Now, there are, of course, a few things with or outside of smart money concepts that could be an interesting kind of thing to kind of consider. That is that we are actually, we were struggling. We were briefly above the 200 EMA. We're now finding that the 200 EMA is rejecting us, and that's on the daily time frame. So not only are we getting rejected from equilibrium here, which is basically 50% level on the fibs between the low and the high, but we can also see that we are getting rejected from the 200 EMA, and we're also below the 50 EMA now, trying to push up a little bit there, but it doesn't look overly promising for the price action of Vechain. So looking to come down, I think essentially is kind of the thing that we need to be kind of considering. Now, the other things with smart money concepts here that we can see is that we have a strong high, meaning that it's not likely to get broken, and we have a weak low, basically meaning it is likely to get broken. So we can see that not only do we have our bearish tendencies, as in we've got our break of structures to the downside, our continuation of our trend down, but we can also see that our highs are very, very strong. So this actually comes way back from over here, the initial surge that we had in August of 2022. We can see that this area has held up as our resistance zone, or where smart money concepts would call this supply. Supply is basically dragging price down. So we can see that in there. We can also see that there's no fair value gaps, no institutional buying occurring here. Any if they have, it's being filled quite easily. So for the most part, my expectations are that we are looking for corrective action to the downside, and it looks like we are probably going to have to push down quite a bit. Now, I think that, from a Z-Wave point of view, where it said 1.152, I think it was, is an interesting kind of thought process. Personally, I think as we kind of come down into new lower lows, it will become more apparent as to how deep this thing is likely to go. But I think a second that we kind of come down lower than 1.5, DCAing is probably going to be high on my agenda. I think there's going to be it's going to be quite a short period of time that we're actually down in very, very low numbers in terms of price. I think it's going to be much better to be more focused on building the positions as prices are going down, because this does appear to be the very final move, in my opinion. I don't think there's going to be a huge amount more to the downside when it comes to the kind of current structures. But with all that being said, if we take a look at our key levels on Vechain, we can, of course, see that 1.4 is a very interesting number to us. And 1.401 is an area that I was kind of just eyeballing on this chart here. And the reason for this is, if we were to think of smart money concepts here telling us that we have a weak low down at the bottom, we can also look at Elliott wave theory saying, look, 1 wave, 2 waves, 3 waves, and that would actually take us down to about 1.4 cent. And you can kind of see it right inside here. If I use the fibs and I measure out this distance and I push it over to this high right here, you can see that it's actually going to be between 1.222 and 1.474. And if I come over to our key levels, we can see that 1.401 happens to be an area of previous resistance turn support. So this could be a real interesting level for us. Likewise, 1.1 is also flagged up here as an interesting area for support. support. So if we were to think about this move from our Z wave coming to the downside, and we're talking about that entry level of 1.151, that's the 618 level on the fibs, then that also happens to coincide quite nicely with where we think, let me find this one here at 1.1 cents. So this here would essentially be our Z wave entry level. And then you can see on the low side, it goes down to 0.00624. This is another area that I've kind of cherry picked out and that looks like a really strong area for support. And if I come back to our Z wave, you can see on the low side here, it would be 0.00406. And our 1-to-1 ratio would actually be sat right here at 0.00605, which would also happen to coincide quite nicely with that low end as well. So all in all, it looks like there's a good amount of DCAing opportunities to the downside to be had here for Vechain, and the potential to the upside, I think, is something that I think is very, very powerful and very, very good. The deeper that it goes, the lower highs that we'll have, of course. So if I, for example, were to move this over to this low end and say that we'll come down to that 0.006, then it does kind of cap out here that we'll have this kind of move to the upside between $1.11 and potentially $3.78. And likewise, if I come back to our other structure where we're only looking at that 1.1 cent level, then we were to look at that slightly differently. I just grab my fibs back onto this chart here. I have a habit of deleting them. And we were to kind of come up to that higher range, just that 618 level, that 1.151 area. You can see that this has the potential to be between $2 and $7, right? So depending on how deep you go, it will depend on how high you can actually push longer term. So just bear that in mind. But I do think some crazy gains are on the horizon here for Vechain. If we do actually have the ability to kind of dollar cost average down at close to 0.5 cent, and we were to go for a 1-to-1 ratio, you're talking 17,000%. If you were to go to the 1.236 fib extension, you're talking 58,000%. Very, very lucrative potential here for Vechain. But don't take my word for it. I'm not a financial advisor. I can't give you financial advice. All I can do is give you my thoughts and opinions on the data as I see it. And I'm going to leave the video right there. If you found it useful and informative, smash the like button. Do appreciate that. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Don't forget to join us down in Discord. And guys, I'll catch you all in the next one.
We are not financial advisors, and none of what we have communicated verbally or in writing here should be considered as financial advice. It is not. Do your own research before investing in any digital asset or affiliate offers, and understand that investing in any crypto is risky. If you do, you need to be prepared to lose your entire investment. This video is for information and entertainment purposes only. All our videos are strictly personal opinions. Please make sure you do your own research and never take our opinions for financial guidance. There are multiple strategies, and not all strategies fit all people. Our videos are not financial advice.